So here we see right here in the beginning, we see God has said there's just this tree called the knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat it, right? Don't eat it. And so they walked around without having any knowledge of good and evil. They were just living in total connection with the Father. This is the original design. No separation, nothing in between, no shame, no guilt, no sin, no separation, just complete connection with the Father. And here we see sin enter, right? So sin enters the story, Genesis 3, and we see them react to sin doing what? Flashback up 3:7. We see that they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Here we see the first introduction, and this is my translation, this is the first introduction of religion. This is the first introduction of man trying to make it right with God on his own. And you see that they sewed the fig leaves together and they made coverings. Who did they do that for? They did that for themselves. They did that. God didn't do it, they did it. All of a sudden, here's what happens. Here's what's really happened in this moment. All of a sudden now their lens that they saw God through got totally messed up because sin came in. Do you know that's what happens with sin? Sin distorts. It distorts me, it distorts God's plan, it distorts my relationship with Him. That's why God hates sin, is because sin separates. Any sin is just a deviation from the original design. Do you know that? Anywhere that you see sin, it's a deviation from what God's original design was. It's a choice that I've made to pick something other than what He would have picked for me. It's me being God. And here we see sin enter. And what happens out of this moment is all of a sudden now, where there is no fear of the Father, you don't see this before. They're walking in the garden. You can imagine they're doing these things together. There's no fear. And all of a sudden, fear enters into this story. How do I know that? Well, I know it because they realized they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Later it says, when God asked them, "Where are you? Why did you hide?" Because I was afraid. And all of a sudden, here we go. Religion comes in. I'm going to make my way back to God to do what I have to do to try to cover myself because I'm now ashamed of what I've done. I'll take it into my own hands. I'll be God. And all of a sudden now fear enters and my lens is distorted and I can't see the Father the way He's made to be seen because sin now separates the view between me and the Father. Do you see that? Why else would you hide if you weren't afraid of what He was going to say, of what He was going to do as a Father? They've never experienced that before. Does that story sound familiar to anyone? Does it sound familiar that that's what happens like with religion? It just causes you to be afraid to go to the Father. And fear enters, and it messes the whole plan up at this point.